Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to the Dawgland. I am Anthony Joki. Got Jackson McCurry alongside me, and we are doing a short little video here on something we never thought that we would have to do. Today, Myles Garrett has officially requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. He released a statement early on this morning that said, "As a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl, and that goal fused me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man that I am today. While I've loved calling the city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. Signed, Myles Garrett." So, Jack, you know, there was comments made by Andrew Berry last week about whether or not he would trade or field offers for Myles Garrett in a trade, in which he said that he expected Miles to go from Cleveland to Canton someday, which kind of was used by Miles in that statement there. So, this obviously comes to a shock of us all. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, it's still hard to process. I mean, we kind of knew that this was always a possibility. I mean, the comments Miles made towards the end of the regular season, that just kind of told you that he was the frustration was mounting with him. I mean, he has done everything to do in his career. Six-time All-Pro, six-time Pro Bowler, potentially two-time reigning Defensive Player of the Year when that gets announced later this week. All-time sack leader in Cleveland, but only one playoff win in 8 seasons, one playoff appearance in 8 seasons. I mean, it's
Two
and
playoff
Andrew Berry
appearances.
or two playoff appearances. I'm sorry, I completely blocked it. I don't know why I was blocking one out, but yeah, two playoff appearances, one playoff victory. Like he's done everything. And Andrew Berry coming out and saying what he needed to say, like I think that kind of made you feel better that maybe those conversations were had behind the scenes and they were able to move forward. Miles saying what he said on the one of the last few episodes of Hard Knocks when he said the Browns aren't far away. It just kind of made you feel like maybe Barry and Stefanski sold him on a plan, like what they were going to do at quarterback and how they were going to push forward and try to, get back on track, get the franchise back on track. But it just seems like Miles is not wanting to, maybe potentially uh, sit and wait for like a rookie quarterback to be established. Maybe they're not, they don't have the resources to potentially go get a better quarterback. And it's hard to process it, but at the same time, it's like we all kind of understand what Miles is going through.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any. It's hard to not take Miles' side on this. They've had a really tough time with the quarterback position. They moved on from a guy who got them a playoff win for a quarterback who hasn't been on the field, has been suspended, etc. And that was a complete unmitigated disaster. And it's cost the Browns a lot. It's cost them, um, you know, being good in the eyes of the public. It's cost them a lot of fans. It's cost them, I'm sure, season ticket holders. I'm sure it's cost them, um, it's probably going to cost them Miles Garrett. Joe Batonio could retire because of this. Uh,
Nick Chubb could leave. I mean,
yeah,
there's
there's a good chance that Nick Chubb could Denzel Ward be next too. You have to wonder, what's going to happen here with the rest of the team after this seismic announcement from Miles Garrett that he, wants to be traded. So, look, it's a tough situation for the Browns to be in. Um, but here, for us as fans, I really don't think that we can see any wrong in what he is requesting at the moment.
no, because I mean, look at us doing this show, Anthony. We've been doing this podcast since the moment Miles Garrett became a Brown. We started this the week of that draft. Miles was going to be the number one pick. And we have seen every twist and turn in his career. And, he's been the most dominant pass rusher in this league. He finally got, that golden moment winning the defensive player of the year last year. And hopefully he gets it again this week because it's well deserved, despite the Browns' woes as a collective team. But like, this has a chance to be a major snowball effect. And I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they don't have to trade him. They don't have to accept his request and trade him. But like, what's it going to take for him to stay? I know people are going to talk about the money and a new contract, and yes, he's due for an extension. We all knew that was coming this offseason. But if you're Myles, outside of the money, like, why would you accept an extension here, knowing that the Browns probably aren't going to be able to get to the Super Bowl with how things are currently constructed because of the Watson contract, because of the cap issues that they have? And will they be able to put a competitive roster out there? Will they get the quarterback position right this time? I think there's a lot of determining factors that Myles has to put into thought. And I think he has put that into thought. And based on the conversations, I think he's ready to move on and go somewhere where he has a chance to win the Super Bowl, because that's the one final thing left for Myles to do in his career. Because I went through all his career accolades. He's done it all except one thing. And I don't know if it's going to happen in Cleveland because right now it's not looking very promising.
No, it's not, and it's a very tough spot for us to be in at the moment. We do have free agency in about a month here. We have the draft in 2.5 months or so. Where do you think a timeline would be on this trade? Is this something that gets done after the Super Bowl? Is this something that drags out over the summer? Is this something that takes a year to do and he sits out? Where do you think, this timeline could be? He does have 2 years remaining on his contract at the moment. So how long do you think this could take?
Well, if you look at the numbers right now on his contract, according to Over the Cap, if they trade him now, you're looking at 36 million in dead money, 36.2 million in dead money, and they lose 16.4 million in cap space, which are already currently 30 million over. So if you think the Browns are in a cap strap situation, like, if they trade Myles, they'll be in an even further one. So I don't know if this happens quickly. I mean, you look at all the league reports; they're saying they're not accepting any calls right now on trades for Myles Garrett. Andrew Berry said it last week. 2 first-round picks, he'd still say no. Um, I would say probably the combine. You probably hear some scuttlebutt about a potential trade around time of the new league year. But I feel like the draft would be a deadline, because if the Browns want a first-round pick and then some, obviously they're talking multiple ones for a guy of Myles Garrett's caliber. I would think the draft is a hard deadline, and then this drags into the summer, because if they're going to have extension talks with Myles and his agent, I mean, Micah Parsons is due a new money deal. I think there's other edge rushers that are in line for a potential extension, and Micah is obviously the big one. Bosa's at, I think, 34 million per year. So obviously Micah and Myles Garrett both will go over that this offseason. So this is going to drag out long into the offseason. And I would just say to Browns fans, you think this is going to happen in like the next month or so? If it does, I'd be stunned, because I think this is going to be a multi-week, maybe even a multi-month process.
Is this something that you could see maybe happening even after the draft, like that they're not sure, what's going to happen, or is this something that maybe gets done the week of the draft, as teams kind of finalize their plans of what they want to do?
I could see in this being like a week of the draft thing, because obviously, like, you look at, if there's somebody in the Abdul Carter sweepstakes towards the top of the draft, say I don't know, New England, let's just say the New England Patriots, for example, because they actually have the cap space to where they could trade for Myles and then turn around and make him the highest paid defensive player in the league. If Abdul Carter goes 1 to Tennessee, or 2 to Cleveland, or even 3 to the New York Giants, maybe New England makes a call and tells Cleveland, "Hey, we'll give you 4. We'll give you our second round pick. We'll give you our number 1, and let's make a deal happen." And then Cleveland's sitting with the second and the fourth pick in the draft, and then you can do whatever you want there at the top of the draft, much like they did in 2018 when they took Baker and Denzel. So I think this, like, I would give the draft a hard deadline for something like this to happen. And then if it doesn't happen, then yes, it could drag into training camp in the preseason. But I would say like the draft would be like the first like real hard deadline for a Myles Garrett trade.
Would you um, rather it happen after the draft? Because let me throw this at you. So if your goal is to get first round picks out of this, would you rather have extra first round picks in this draft, or would you rather have them in 2026, 2027, when you know that there's quarterbacks coming down the pipeline?
I mean, you can think that way, but I mean, let's just say, for instance, the Browns love Shador Sanders and take him at 2. And then you decide like, hey, we have a chance to get Abdul Carter as well in this draft somehow. And like say the Giants don't draft him, and then we're sitting at 4 and just New England, for example. I don't know if Miles would even be open to going to New England because they're in a rebuilding project themselves, but just say, in all intents and purposes, you get 4 their second round pick and next year's number 1. So then you're still sitting with 2 1s this year, 2 1s next year. Then you have a chance to build around Shador Sanders or Cam Ward or whoever. Like I would take the multiple. I would take what you can get right now. Not take what you could get, but like if you can get an extra 1 at least for next year, then you just have that extra capital to play with to where then whoever our future rookie quarterback's going to be, you can maximize your chips and build around that person. But like,
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe
I
maybe
just it's
maybe a one this year, one next year, some kind of player, somewhere in that range, would be really interesting to see. Now, I did see the odds of where Myles Garrett could end up, and I thought it was very interesting that the Dallas Cowboys are on top of that list at the moment. Which we don't know how much closer they are to the Super Bowl. With they're going to have a new head coach here. They do have a quarterback at least, but if they decided to pair him up with Michael Parsons, that's two, really tough contracts to have on one roster. And then I saw the Chiefs being the second team with the highest odds on that list, and I don't think that's something that the Browns would do. But if anywhere, I would see him going to the NFC, and the teams that I would pin it down to are probably the Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Detroit Lions, and the LA Rams. Like if I had to pick, a few teams, those would be the teams that I would say would be most likely.
yeah, I'm looking at the teams that have cap space going into 2025, and it's the Raiders. I think I saw the Raiders thrown out there as, pairing him up with Max Crosby, which would be absolutely insane. They have the money to make it work. The Washington Commanders, they're 78 million in cap space. Even the Chicago Bears, I saw somebody throw out like, what did they got 3 picks in the top 41.
Yeah, it's like
Like if you threw that,
10, 39, and 42, I think I saw.
yeah, I'd throw them into the mix because I mean, if Ben Johnson can get Caleb Williams on the right track, like the Bears can take off as a contender. Minnesota's got cap space. The 49ers have cap space. Like imagine pairing Miles up with Nick Bosa. You mentioned Detroit, Green Bay is another team, and the LA Rams. Like you mentioned, like Les Snead's always been in that F them picks mentality. Like if Myles Garrett became available and you pair him up with the young defensive line guys that they have there, and like you load up with Matthew Stafford for one more run, like it makes sense. Like moving Miles to the NFC makes sense, obviously, because you get him out of the conference. You don't have to play him except at once every like few years. But yeah, I mean, like those teams in the NFC have a lot of cap space. They have the draft picks to make it work. Like if the Browns ultimately decide to pull the trigger, I mean, it would make sense to ship him off somewhere in the NFC that's primed and ready for a Super Bowl run.
Let me ask this: is there any chance, any scenario that you see that could net the Browns a quarterback in return for Myles Garrett?
Not really, because I just don't see like the scenario. Like I know like there's people that are like fascinated with Joe Milton because he had one good game against the backup Bills defense, and I keep throwing the Patriots out there. But you look at the rest of the list of possibilities, like Kyler Murray with Arizona. No, that doesn't make sense. Like the Chargers have a lot of cap space; they can't move Justin Herbert. Like I just don't see a logistic possibility where you can flip Miles into getting a quarterback. just because it's not. There's a lot of teams looking for quarterbacks, just like the Browns, and I don't really see anybody giving up one just to get Myles Garrett.
Yeah, it would be pretty tough, and the only way you're probably going to get one is with um, a draft pick at some point, whether it's this year or in the coming years. So it's a tough situation for the Browns to be in, and it sucks to be here. This is really testing my fandom at the moment. Um, we've had a lot of that, unfortunately, over the years here as we've done this podcast. And I didn't even think about we started this when Miles was drafted, like you said, and it's crazy that it's 8 years later, and we're sitting at this spot right now. So it's tough to be at, but unfortunately, this is our reality that we live in for now. Um, I guess I do have one more thing here. Is there any percentage of a chance, if he had to put a number on it, that things could get resolved here? Do you put a percentage on it at all? That he could be getting a new contract from the Browns and they could move past this, or is this completely over?
I mean, there's always a chance, and money talks, but I think was it Jeremy Fowler of ESPN said it's not a money thing, it's not a contract thing. Like Miles could get 40 million a year right now, an extension if he wanted to, and be the highest paid non-quarterback in this league. Like he's that dominant, he's that much of a difference maker, and I can see the Browns doing it. There's also been the discussion of them get fully guaranteeing his contract. I don't know if they go that route. They may have to entice him to stay, which would be an interesting scenario. Like, what do the Browns do then with two fully guaranteed contracts on the roster? But I'll give it I'll give it a 30% chance that this thing gets resolved and Myles Garrett stays with the Browns. But I don't know. Like you could just see it. Like the Browns are obviously digging their heels into this because it's been known for a while that he requested a trade, according to some of the reports. But the fact that it's public now, Anthony, means it's gonna probably get ugly before it gets better.
Yeah, yeah. Just like when Baker requested his trade, it was in the ugliest parts of all of that. So it's an unfortunate situation to be in. So um, it is what it is, I guess. But
Yeah.
all right, we're gonna get out of here. We appreciate you all for watching. We'll be sure to keep you updated on what's going on with Miles Garrett as we head on into free agency and the draft. Obviously, if there's any sort of trade, we'll get on here and talk about that as well. Uh, Till next time, go Browns.